right, Monday night, you know the drill. We got Pat's film notes, and I got to tell you, my notes are as long as ever. But I know at home, however you felt about Sunday's loss, rooting for it if you're one of the sickos looking at draft order before Thanksgiving, or you're significantly upset because the Patriots let yet another win slip from their fingers. We are not going to dive as deep into Pat's Titans 2017 at overtime because I think the response to that loss being more about the last play of regulation. Again, a game that goes to overtime being about the last play of regulation, which was absolutely spectacular, says everything about this team right now. They're 2-7. They stink. The team they beat is 2-6. They stink. This game was very clearly a bad game where the Patriots could not run the ball. Not new. They had trouble protecting. Also not new. And they gave up more yards on the ground. Again, not new. But we do have two big takeaways from this. I will still get to those film notes, plus a little bit of trade deadline talk and your mailbag answers because we're professionals here on the Pats Interference podcast. Takeaways. Number one, the Patriots are asking way too much of Drake Maye. And it's not that the kid is not capable. If you were listening back in April, you knew how I felt about him as a prospect. It's the fact that for them to win this game, he had to hold the ball for almost 12 seconds, play 10 on 11. Yes, 10 and 11. We'll get to that in a second. And then throw a touchdown pass as he's being thrown to his ass in order to just tie this game. Along the way, he accounted for 95% of their total offense. I'll say that again, 95% of their total offense. It's not that he's not capable. Again, I think the world of this kid, 22 years old, playing NFL quarterback. He's only 4 games in. Of course, he's going to throw picks and he's going to fumble. He's not supposed to do that, though, at the end of regulation, and he did. It's that no rookie should be subject to all this. Okay, since he took over, Drake Maye is a Patriots leading rusher. He's also, you could argue, his own best pass protector, the way that he's scrambling out of that pressure to pick up those rushing yards, and only Hunter Henry among all of his receivers. His top 50 yards in a single game the last 3 weeks. There's minimal separation, and that goes for all the wideouts, okay? I don't want to hear about Javon Baker's 1 post route and 4 snaps. By the time he broke off that route in the first half, it was more than 3.3 seconds after the snap, and only then did he change direction, at which point Drake Maye was cocking his arm and found a check down. I'm happy Baker saw the field. He's explosive. I hope he gets better. That was just not proof of anything in particular. Speaking of nothing being proof, Kendrick Bourne ran 2 comeback routes that were shy of the sticks, including 1 on 3rd down. Can't have it. Pop Douglas had to drop. Coaching, don't get me wrong, is an issue. Let's not pull everyone's favorite move on Twitter, which is say one thing, but the thing that you omitted is something that you are actually protecting or carrying water for. The point is, no one is stepping up right now offensively for Drake Maye, who had 2 picks and a fumble, and you could not argue was anything less than the best player in that offense in Tennessee. Number 2, I think we've entered a new phase of this season because answer me this. How in the world is a rookie, Layden Robinson, allowed to start against Jeffrey Simmons, a top 10, 15 best defender in football, maybe a top 50 player in football, instead of Mike Onwenu? Why is Jaheim Bell, 7th round tight end, getting a screen called for him and him only that goes for 1 yard in the first quarter? Why is Javon Baker on kick return when he's not been practicing kick returns basically until a couple of weeks ago? Why is Marco Wilson stealing reps at outside corner when he gets his butt kicked in the first drive? The answer is that new phase. Full-on, developmental, press on, and wins and losses can take a backseat. Because Elliott Wolf told us in February, part of this new Packer way that we're seeing in Foxborough includes emphasizing and almost dictating to the coaching staff, we're going to play young players. Okay? Later, he told me he expects to get younger as the season goes on. Part of that might be injuries or attrition. But here you can see the Patriots almost forcing the issue. Again, they had their best offensive linemen all set to go. Mike Onwenu, I'm writing about this future heavyweight bout. Okay? He's at right guard, his best position as identified by his offensive line coach. And they go, nah, we'll move you to tackle. Further away from Simmons, okay, the player Gerard Mayo identified on Wednesday, and then on Friday, and then after the game Sunday, and again on Monday as being a real problem. And in Onwenu's place, you put a rookie who's been in and out of the lineup with injuries and issues with performance. And then he gives up a pressure, gets called for holding, and gets away with another holding call all against Jeffrey Simmons in the first drive. That's who they chose to play. The answer, folks, cannot possibly be about winning. It's about getting reps for Layden Robinson, who we know they think very highly of, and I think will be a good player. But this was not the time nor the spot, if you wanted to win that football game on Sunday, to play him. It was the time and spot, being early November, when your season is already basically lost to play him if you want to develop him. And that goes for all the other guys who got out there and played, except for Jalen Polk, who played about 9 offensive snaps, had 2 penalties, 1 target, and 0 catches. So that's where I think we are. There were breadcrumbs left from the Jets game, starting with Baker on kick return and a couple other guys on defense. But offensively, I think this is their first sign. The Patriots have put up a sign saying it's time to go, kids. And that's why you see more of them on the field, even when it doesn't really make any sense. Okay, let's get to Drake Maye. But first, if you want to go to a Patriots game before it gets too frigid, they get the Rams coming to the town soon, the Colts after that, then they get to the bye week, or you want to go to a Celtics game or a concert or a show, there's only one place to go first, and that is Game Time. You can go to Game Time and get the lowest price guarantee for any ticket to any show, any game right now, and you can use Game Time Picks, which filters out all the fluff and only gives you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching at other sites. Plus, that lowest price guarantee comes with a promise to give you 110% of the difference if you find a lower price elsewhere. But here's the thing, you won't. So download the Game Time app today. Create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Again, I've done this, took my wife and a good friend to London for that Jaguars game, got them tickets, got some money off for myself. Terms do apply. But first, you need to create an account and use code CLNS for $20 off at Game Time. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time, baby. Actually, it's Drake Maye time. So when you look at his stat line, almost 100 yards rushing, 95 to be exact. Meanwhile, the second leading rusher had 16, and he completes over 70% of his passes and goes for over 200 yards. Like, none of this, when you consider the volume of dropbacks, aside from the scrambling numbers, is all that impressive. It was impressive that he was overcoming 0 run game, another pressure rate north of 30%, and as we detailed, receivers who were just not separating or running with enough detail. But the most impressive part is all of his best plays were off schedule. His scrambles beat pressure, again with a 95 rushing yards. His processing and creativity beat the blitz. His willingness to hang in the pocket and throw off platform got that 21-yarder to Demario Douglas rolling right in the third quarter, layers it over the second-level defender. Pop Douglas, great catch, toe tap, out of bounds, boom, move the chains. And then that little left-handed flip we saw to Ramondre Stevenson as he was getting dragged to the ground, this being Drake Maye. Okay, then, of course, came the touchdown at the end, which, oh, by the way, I mentioned Drake Maye playing 10 and 11. I missed this on first watch on Sunday. Maybe you didn't. But in the middle of that play, as the Patriots roll out 5 receivers against an 8-man coverage from the Titans near the end zone, Hunter Henry gets knocked out of bounds and is then forced to stay out of bounds because had he caught Drake Maye's pass, it would have been illegal touching and the Patriots would have been backed up. So he stays out. Then the Patriots have 4 receivers out against 8-man in coverage until the guy that was covering Hunter Henry runs at Drake Maye, forces him to throw the ball after 11.82 seconds. And of course, it finds Stevenson. But the point is, as impressive and difficult as that play was, it was more impressive and difficult than you realized, or maybe it was just me at home. Incredible. Anyway, so how much of this is sustainable? Because it's great that Drake Maye can drive the car and be the engine and be the airbags, as I wrote afterward, because their solution, when anyone else kind of screws up, the offensive line and pass protection, the running game not getting certain yards, or receivers who stumble, as Kendrick Bourne did on that last play and took himself out, is for Drake to run or find a different outlet or continue to extend that play. And I would just say, if you look at any quarterback over a full season, okay, who has put himself into the Pro Bowl or MVP conversation, whatever, they're not majoring in that. Okay, they're functioning within an already functioning offense. Okay, you have protection enough of the time, you have receivers that separate, and a structure that makes sense. He doesn't have that right now. Okay, so it's great that he can create, and he will reliably create on his own with scrambles or extended plays or whatever it might be. But I would like to get him some more support. The Patriots have to get him more support. And in the meantime, he can focus on a couple of corrections. The first interception, it's a 5-man blitz with a Amani Hooker who got the pick, short robber. Drake Maye was expecting Demario Douglas running a crossing route to clear Amani Hooker in that short zone out of the picture. Because why wouldn't you throw it to Pop Douglas? You know, we here on the podcast would throw it to Pop Douglas. And the goal was to then throw it to Jalen Polk, who was running an in-breaking route right behind Pop Douglas. It's kind of like a replacement concept. Well, Amani Hooker's been like, okay, it's cool that Demario Douglas is going by. I'm watching your eyes. And Drake Maye's eyes took him right to Jalen Polk, where Hooker made the pick, and that was it. He also did this on the second pick, where initially Drake Maye called it a dumb decision. Then he said today that he underthrew him. meaning Kayshon Boutte. Boutte absolutely should have done more, by the way. Speaking of giving your quarterback some support, play a little defense, pal. You knew that wasn't coming your way. You have to get there and break that pass up. He said he underthrew it today. The point being, the danger for Drake Maye is not, again, that he can't do all of these things. And it's not even that he shouldn't have to do all of these things, but he is. It's that if he's asked to do this over time and again and again and again, this is why I want to slow play his starts. You run the risk of ingraining these habits where he crosses over from aggressive to more reckless. And we're a ways away from that just now. It's just something to keep in mind because obviously Drake Maye felt a good deal of pressure to get that ball deep. And some of it was clock, some of it was the fact that you're in overtime, you're trailing. But his first throw on that drive, too, was deep down the sideline, fell incomplete. Then he scrambles. And then he throws that pass to Boutte. So in all three instances, this is a guy, a quarterback, who says to himself, I have to make this play. I have to put this ball deep in a place that only my guy can get it. Or I need to scramble. Or I need to throw it deep again. And he's right that he has to do this all himself. But the Patriots can't keep asking that. Otherwise, he will bring himself down in the offense with it because right now he is the offense. Only other nitpick for me, otherwise, again, processing there, creativity's there, scrambling, good enough accuracy. It wasn't, 70% like wow accurate, but certainly good enough. He had a couple of questionable decisions on some RPOs because a big part of this game plan for the Patriots was saying, okay, we're going to feed the ball to Demario Douglas. He's going to be running these little bubbles or hitch routes. And what that'll do is take advantage of the bad tackling at the Titans corners. They're a good tackling defense in Tennessee, but the guys that miss are the ones who would be theoretically guarding Demario Douglas. Well, in efforts to get the ball to pop, Drake Maye pulled the ball out on these RPOs despite facing a light box, which if he had made the read correctly, would have said, hand the ball off. You've got 6-on-6. If everyone blocks 1-on-1, you're fine. But outside, you'd have 3 defenders over 2 receivers. There's no advantage there. He threw a couple of those. Again, it's a nitpick. He also went over 5 on deep passes, which you just don't expect from him moving forward, but that's it for Drake Maye. Okay, Alex Van Pelt. So a lot of heat for him as I was watching this game on Sunday, and I get it. Like, it's heat for offensive coordinators is not new. I've done it with the teams that I watch and rooted for and yada, yada. But the issue for him was not, I would say, the play calling was a complete disaster. And let's jump in right to the end of the half because I know this was the big one. And I think people are half right here. 2nd and 1, it's a handoff to JaMycal Hasty. Patriots are going to stonewall all game up front. Why are you handing the ball off in a 2-minute drill when Drake Maye is clearly moving the ball either by himself running or throwing? Well, if you look at the defensive front on that play, the Titans do not cover up, meaning they don't put a defensive lineman or a linebacker over either guard or the center. So if you're calling an inside run, this is the exact front that you want. They call inside zone. You're supposed to get a double team by left tackle Badarian Lowe and left guard Michael Jordan, and they start that way. Hasty gets the ball, and then both of them cut that defensive lineman loose. I don't remember who it was off the top of my head. So this was a mental mistake. Day 1 install screw up by Michael Jordan and Badarian Lowe. I think Lowe left a little bit too early. Again, you need 3 feet. Just hold the double team. Then you can get to the second level. They didn't. It's 3rd and 1. Then I would say everyone's got a case. Hey, Van Pelt, like what? You think you're going to load up and suddenly run on the Titans after they've stopped you virtually every single scenario to date? Like, okay, you have someone in the backfield who's an offensive lineman playing fullback. Great. They know you're going to run right. It's where you always run right in high leverage situations, and shocker, the Titans stop them. But going backwards, the Titans did stop another game plan where Van Pelt wanted to go heavy personnel, 11 of the first 14 snaps. Close to that. We talk about this 15-play script that offensive coordinators always have. 11 of those first 14 had either multiple backs, including the fake fullbacks. They don't have a traditional fullback, or multiple tight ends. The rest of the way, they were more than 80% from 11 personnel, meaning 3 receivers. So 1 tight end, 1 running back, and that's it. And that's because they got stonewalled running the ball in that heavy personnel, and when they called runs on the first 4 first down plays. So the initial plan doesn't work, but worse than that, because again, I don't think the play calling stuff is totally fair. Just get the 3 yards. It was a good front, 2nd and 1. 3rd and 1, sure, go nuts. Is that they did not have a good plan for Jeffrey Simmons, who Gerard Mayo, again, called out Wednesday and Friday, and then after the game, and then after the game again today, Monday morning. And part of the plan, in addition to these little bubble screens for Demario Douglas, was to just run outside. He had an early toss in that first drive, okay? But there were no wham plays. There were no trap plays. You were not going tempo to wear out that pass rush. You were not moving the launch point until the last drive of the game, okay, meaning bootleg rollouts or just movement throws, anything like that. Something Mayo also said they had to do and just flatly did not. And so instead, Jeffrey Simmons gets multiple pressures, several pressures, draws multiple holding calls, and devastates your run game. Layden Robinson gets benched before halftime on when he goes back to right guard where he should have been the whole time. And Demontre Jacobs, who was good against the Jets. I don't know why he got benched in this particular game, but he did. And then he's back and he was fine, just like he was last week. Okay. The plan was not good enough to neutralize Jeffrey Simmons. Last thing here. It was interesting. I mentioned the Patriots go more than 80% 11 personnel for the rest of the game after the multiple tight end stuff just doesn't work, except on the last 3 plays of regulation, okay, which included a 4th down and the last snap of the game. Alex Van Pelt went back to the 2 tight end sets. And part of this, I think, is just the game situation where, hey, if you're going to throw a jump ball, it might as well be to 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", Austin Hooper or Hunter Henry, right? And there's a part of me, though, that knows their most efficient grouping has been the 2 tight end personnel all season anyway. So in those moments, I think what that says to me is playing through 12 personnel is how Alex Van Pelt wants to play in his heart, in the moment where you don't have time to think or plan or analyze or do any of that. You just have to call it and go, what do you want to do now? His answer in those last 3 plays was 2 tight end personnel. I wonder if you see a little bit more. But as I said before, there's a little issue with that when you take off Demario Douglas, by far your best receiver. All right, some stats, and then we'll get to defense. Rhamondre Stevenson forced 3 missed tackles, 16 rushing yards, 17 after contact. Michael Hasty, Drake Maye both forced 1 missed tackle. As far as pressure goes, Michael Jordan gave up 2 quarterback hits in a hurry. Drake Maye was at fault on, I thought, a quarterback in a hurry. Ben Brown, 2 holding penalties, a sack, quarterback hit. Bad. Michael Wenu, 2 pressures. Both of them were hurries. 1 each for Robinson and Jacobs playing on that right side. Vidarian Lowe was involved in half of their run stuffs. Can't have it. And Booty and Pop Douglas had to drop. Defense. So aside from Mike Onwenu and Jeffrey Simmons, the biggest matchup in this game was going to be and was Christian Gonzalez against Calvin Ridley. And the Patriots didn't play as much man coverage as I thought they would. And even when they did, it was not always Christian Gonzalez guarding Ridley one-on-one. They threw a couple double teams at him. And the bottom line was Christian Gonzalez gave up 3 catches for 51 yards to Ridley. And it should have been worse. Ridley had a drop. 2, you could argue. And he also sprung free on the play where Jelani Tavai gets that tip drill pick in the end zone. The 3rd end zone pick the Patriots have had, by the way, out of their 4 this season. And if you look, Christian Gonzalez follows, not Ridley, who is in the slot, his outside receiver in where that target went. And Ridley, from the slot, runs a corner out to no one because Marcus Jones, who's over Ridley in the slot, passes Ridley off. He thinks to Gonzalez and instead goes to no one. So if Mason Rudolph had not committed to that quick in route instantly and just looked at his best receiver, that's a touchdown and probably on Christian Gonzalez. So where does that fit within the larger plan? Well, again, the results are mixed. Whether you look at the pass, where they did a lot of damage in early downs because Titans figured out, okay, you're going to play big personnel. Patriots are 40% in base defense for this game, which meant you have to play a lot of zone. You're not asking Jelani Tavai and Christian Ellis and Anthony Jennings to play, man-to-man coverage. So if you're playing big defense, big personnel, and you're running a lot of zone coverage, what are you susceptible to? Play action. When is play action most effective? Early downs. So Rudolph goes 7 of 10 for 96 yards and a touchdown, as you saw on that opening drive. And ultimately, despite the fact that the Patriots actually got decent pressure on Rudolph, even on some of those play action throws, was north of 30%. They couldn't create enough negative plays to keep the Titans off schedule. The Titans had a success rate north of 50%, meaning on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down. They were often getting enough yards to stay on schedule. The Patriots don't have players who can create negative plays, which, of course, are the defensive version of explosive plays. So the same offensively, where it's such a slog just to get downfield, that's what it is on defense because they can't make plays when they need to. But when they did get pressure, Anthony Jennings had 3. Dietrich Rice had 2, including the sack. He also gave up a scramble to Mason Rudolph on that 3rd down on the first drive. Continued, goes for a touchdown. Jelani Tavai had a really good game, except for one play. Get to in a second. Quarterback hit, a hurry, the pick, had a run stuff. Keon White, I had down for 2. Pressured, 1 hit, 1 hurry. Daniel Akawali played well. Quaylen Roy's still hanging around. I don't know how as a pass rusher. He's like their steadiest guy when it comes to non-sack pressure, though he's probably still second in sacks. And then pass deflections, Gonzalez had 2, Jonathan Jones had 1. We already talked about Christian Gonzalez. The issue for the Patriots, again, on the ground, playing a lot of base defense, the Titans still going again and again at you, as you saw with 41 rushing yards in overtime, and Tony Pollard goes for over 100, and it's 4.6 yards a carry, is that they repeatedly went at the edges and successfully. They drew in the Patriots defensive backs and said, hey, Marco Wilson, why don't you come up and tackle with crack toss plays, meaning you have a tight end or receiver comes in towards the box at the snap and boom, hits the defensive end or edge defender from the side. And with that, the left tackle gets to loop around that crack block, okay, and is now out in space and leading the charge against smaller players. And if you look back at Tony Pollard's 32-yard run, which I tweeted this morning, you see Marco Wilson wants nothing to do with this. Marte Mapu's out of the play. And Marcus Jones is basically off the screen. So these are smaller players. They're not great against the run. And the Titans knew this and ran as many times outside of the tackles, meaning beyond the left shoulder of the left tackle and beyond the right shoulder of the right tackle. Okay, not behind them, outside of them, 16 times. They averaged 5.8 yards per carry running these crack toss plays, or that example was truck toss, which is outside zone just with the one pulling tackle. But anyway, they averaged 3.5 yards per carry going anywhere behind their actual offensive linemen between the tackles. So there was a big difference. Another big difference, Christian Ellis regressed. Great game against the Jets. He looked much like the guy against the Jaguars, which means Jelani Tavai was not balling out. They had issues at the second level. And Tavai missed, or I would say ran himself out of the play on a very key snap, 3rd and 3, overtime. Titans are already in field goal range. But if you stop him here, you give your offense 4 minutes and not 2.5 to go down and get their own score. He takes a shot, and you talk about playing selfish or a little bit outside of the scheme, tries to get a negative play in the backfield, overshoots it. They wash him out. Tony Pollard goes for 9 yards. Devon Gotcho, speaking getting washed out, not a great game for him. This is 2 in a row. He's going to come up when we talk about the trade deadline. I don't see any value in teams trading for this guy. But you just need more. I mean, you look at why this run defense has failed. He's your best run defender. He's not bringing it. And you need more of that. When the guys next to him are like Jacqueline Roy, as we've seen in past weeks, Eric Johnson, or Daniel Quale, who is the only steady defensive tackle in this game for the Patriots and has now passed his career high for snaps in a single season. Folks, as we record right now, thanks to Monday Night Football, it is still week 9. Daniel Quale hit a career high. Other than that, solid tackling day. Patriots only whipped 5 times. And Anthony Jennings, 3 pressures, despite playing a career high 76 snaps. Good for him. What would NFL Film say? This is another quick one in our chapter of this fictitious hour-long documentary about the Patriots season. It's all about the last play of regulation. You certainly get some sort of line about, youth gives and it takes away. Maybe a couple shots of Drake May scrambling in there. Maybe the opening Titans touchdown drive. Hopefully you get a call from Mike Keith, who is this excellent Titans radio play-by-play man. Been there for years. Deep, deep voice. If you've ever heard or watched any NFL Film stuff with Tennessee on there, which probably you haven't in the last 10 years. Awesome radio voice. Anyway, you see that last play from like 10 different angles with Maye. Then it gets to the end of the pick, and this thing is maybe 30 seconds, maybe 45 in the whole scheme of things. We need to talk. So this segment's in place of Game Balls. It's not a player. It's not even a coach that I've mentioned just yet. I want to sit down with you, Scott Peters, offensive line coach. Again, Ramondre Stevenson had more rushing yards after contact than he did total. And you started a 4th-round rookie opposite Jeffrey Simmons on your own volition, instead of just letting Mike Onwenu do his job at the position that he's best at, as you've told us, and hoping to control Simmons that way, which, of course, you got around to. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I applaud the offensive line for bringing the pressure rate below 40, which they've now done for 2 straight weeks. And it's still, honestly, a little bit high. It's above average or below average, but higher than most teams. The stability was there. The continuity was there. There was an unnecessary shakeup. Again, I believe in the name of development, but this was all around bad. You got your butts kicked up front. That comes back to you in the coaching. Trade deadline. But first, Prize Picks. I gave out the easiest pick in the world last week, Saquon Barkley, over half of a touchdown, rewarded handsomely, plus a little spin and backwards juke or leap or whatever he did against the Jaguars. I will have more picks later this week because I think the key really is for someone who covers the Patriots, just don't pick things related to the Patriots. And whether you follow my picks or not, you need to go to Prize Picks now because it is the best way to win real money this football season. And you can pick your fantasy players, the players we talk about here, players facing the Patriots. But what you do is pick 2 to 6, okay? And their corresponding stat projections. So it might say Drake May, more than or less than 200 passing yards. And if you think he's going to light up the Bears for more than 200 passing yards, well, you just hit more. And then you get another player and another player, and you file your lineup, and you can win up to 100 times your money. I'll say that again. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as few as 4 correct picks. It takes less than 60 seconds. And again, you take your takes or your fantasy players into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Best part is this. If you sign up today with America's #1 daily fantasy sports game, you get $50 instantly the first time you play $5. You don't need to win that lineup, your first $5 lineup, to get the 50. It's a bonus either way, guaranteed. And now Prize Picks uses Venmo, which is how I use it. So everything is safe, secure, easy to use, and you get your money in 15 minutes. So download Prize Picks today. Use code CLNS and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Okay, trade deadline. I do not expect much from the Patriots here on Tuesday. Trade deadline is 4:00. It's the biggest thing going on Tuesday, frankly, let's be honest. But reports recently have said that Jonathan Jones, they're not interested in trading him. KJ Osborne, I think, is a much different deal. Healthy scratch. He's being a little bit coy with reporters. He's at least got a track record. It's not here in New England where he's stunk and a lot of things are not going right. But I think it's him is a virtual lock to not be on the team come Thursday or Friday. Just reading the tea leaves, no hard reporting there. Beyond that, Tyquan Thornton, you're not getting anything for him, a young player, 4.2 speed or not. This is third year in the league. What would compel you as an outside GM to be like, hey, yeah, I'll give you any kind of pick for that guy who also might be cut if he's not traded? There are rumors. Diana Rossini, the Athletic, has brought up Devon Godchow and Kyle Duggar. That would surprise me because the Patriots will either have the fastest buyer's remorse on these contracts, guys who they've either signed to an extension or signed outright. Both of them were extensions because Duggar got transition tag. But setting that aside, within 6 months in Duggar's case, or 2 or 3 in Godchow's case, it just seems unlikely. Now, would it surprise me if that source and that information is not coming from the Patriots and instead teams trying to pressure them to add a Duggar or a Godchow or maybe people from their camp? Pure speculation. No, it would not. There's a lot of stuff that flies around the deadline, but the Patriots don't have a lot to offer other teams. They're interested in picks the way a lot of other teams have established themselves. Look, you could have any number of teams. I would say up to 10 right now land the #1 overall pick, which would be the Patriots, by the way, if the season ended today. There's just not a whole lot here. When we did fake trades, and the first 3 I gave you involved the Patriots getting at most a 6th-round pick, and that was for Jonathan Jones, who supposedly they're not interested in dealing. And honestly, I wouldn't be either at this point. More due to leadership, frankly, sadly, than it is his on-field play. He gave up a touchdown against Tennessee. I think that's just where we are because one of the worst run defenses in the league cannot afford to give up even a guy underwhelming relative to his contract in Devon Godchow. Kyle Duggar was just named a captain. He's tailor-made for this kind of scheme. I don't know how many other teams would be looking for a player like him, someone who's really a box safety, but you can rotate in other places and doesn't play a ton of man coverage. Okay, he's a fit here. He wants to be here. He just re-upped here. He's a top 10 highest paid safety in the league. I don't know if that gets done. I could be wrong. I'm just saying, do not get your hopes up one way or another, I think, for fireworks to trade deadline, which, of course, we know will mean we have an emergency podcast when the Patriots make some sort of big deal Tuesday night or Wednesday. So far, right now, though, the plan is to be back Thursday with Mike Giardi. So if you need to find something else to do, I understand. Let's get to the mailbag and get out of here. Jeffrey wants to know, do you think we expect too much from rookies in general or too soon? I say this because it is halfway through the season and everyone is killing Jalen Polk, already saying bust in another bad pick. I then see someone like Quentin Johnson on the Chargers bounce back year 2 and show great improvements. On the flip side, CJ Stroud is regressing in second year, but still playing okay. Yes, Jeffrey, I do think we expect too much from the rookies. Someone wanted to get me to, quote, admit that Elliott Wolf's already had a bad first draft class. This has nothing to do with Elliott. This is only to do with being 9 weeks into a season for a team that's rebuilding, has rookies that have been injured, playing poorly, and any team, any player, any coach, any front office, that's not enough time to know what you have. Okay. That's not even a full college football season. All right. There are scouts here who are not calling it quits because they're 9 games into scouting the guys who are going to come up in the draft because there's still more season to go. The bigger games are still ahead. I want to see more from these guys and I want to see more from them next year, right? Year two leap. How many times have we heard that? You already cited an example. We see that across the league. It's way too early. I think you do expect too much from rookies, especially in these kind of situations where okay, you might get the ball a lot. Like it's a bad player playing an NBA team. Are you getting a lot of good stats, but it's not driving winning? Great. Obviously, the Patriots aren't doing either, so it's disappointing. But context matters, especially for the development of players, which makes what Drake May is doing super impressive, but everyone else a little bit more understandable. And that's why I would preach patience, period, when we're talking about still being in week 9 of the season. But secondarily, going, well, who's here to help them? Okay. Yeah, they might be able to play, but look who they're playing with or next to. It's bad. It's the least talented roster in the AFC, maybe the worst in the whole league. Dave, should they check in? Meaning the Patriots. On Chris Olave, knowing season should be over or his concussion history, is that too severe right now to look into him? First and foremost, obviously wishing all the best for Chris Olave, who I believe just suffered his third concussion in the NFL since the Saints traded up to pick him in the first round. And yes, I don't think the Saints take any kind of calls. I get the buy low nature of this, but also if you're the Patriots, why are you wanting to make an investment in a player that, just ask a Dolphins fan how they feel about watching Tua take his third concussion and now sliding. He's getting standing ovations for sliding in Miami. And there are people who also feel he shouldn't be playing, period. That's a decision Chris Olave has to make for himself, but I would not want anything to do with this, either in the strict objective, you know, football only sense or in the personal sense of just having to cover and watch that. John, quote, who are the rookie and first year players that are building blocks for next season and beyond based on what you've seen so far? This is very similar to another question from Brett. What, quote, pieces do you think the Patriots currently have on the roster to build around Drake May? And do you believe they currently have the staff in place to identify, develop, and accomplish this task? Belichick wasn't wrong about having the same pieces on D as last year, even with the injuries. Well, the Patriots lost 3 of their top 7 tacklers from last year. Okay. Bentley, Peppers, Marmer. That's not nothing. The defense should be better than this. Covington and company are not doing a good enough job. That can both be true. And Bill also cannot be right, as you say, I believe, when you actually take into context what they're saying. But you want to know about the building block players? Look, Jalen Polk is going to get an opportunity through the end of this year, through next year. I'm higher on him than what we've seen so far. I was lower than consensus on him as a player. I like Lad McConkey, who the Patriots obviously passed on, and there were some injury concerns there with the back, but he's killing it with the Chargers. Okay. So if it's not Jalen Polk, I do think Layden Robinson will develop into a long-term starter at guard. I think Caden Wallace has a shot, might be more as a swing tackle, but again, he's just not been healthy. He's not had a shot. So you look at him, you look at Drake May, Christian Gonzalez, obviously. I would say Keon White for sure. Duggar, presuming he's not traded recently. And then you look at the future. I mean, Hunter Henry's going to be around for 2 more seasons. It's a guy you want there. Stevenson, next couple of years. But after that, as a running back, you really don't know. If you really want to go beyond 3 years, to me, you feel great about this. It's May, Pop Douglas, Christian Gonzalez, Keon White, Barmore. I don't really think I'm missing anybody, which is crazy. But that's also year 1 in a rebuild. And that's where the Patriots are right now. So that's the best I got. Pepper's obviously taken off the board for obvious reasons. I might have missed someone. Feel free to yell at me on Twitter. Kenny B, the coaching staff deserves the heat they've been getting all season. Yes, they have. But I feel like the media overall has given Wolf a pass since the cupboards were left so bare by Belichick, and he has a multi-year rebuild ahead of him. Should the media be more critical of Wolf after 9 weeks, or is it still too early to begin evaluating his tenure? So evaluating the tenure in the big picture, is this a success or is it a failure? Yes, that's too early. But again, we deal in nuance here in the podcast. That's why you're still listening. What minute are we in here? Even though I've hit the mic like 5 times. 35 minutes. Okay. We can parse this out. We can understand that not everything is an A+ or an F, like you might hear on TV and radio. And to that, I would say, first of all, Elliott has an incomplete. Second of all, I've been critical of their lack of additions outside at tackle, where you go, okay, even if worst case scenario, like they've had, Caden Wallace gets hurt, okay, Chukwuekorfor was hurt and then leaves. I'm missing somebody. But the point is, Vidarian Lowe comes back, and I feel great about him as a starter. You don't feel great about him as a starter. Yeah, he might exceed your expectations in pass protection, but the point is, the Patriots could have had a Jonah Williams. They could have traded for a Cam Robinson. They could have signed Jermaine Illuminor this offseason to play right tackle, put on Wenu at right guard, and then say Chooks and Caden and Vidarian Lowe, you all battle it out for the spot at left tackle. Because the Patriots have been missing, is one player that you can say, okay, once he gets back, we'll be fine. No, the last 2 years, including in 2023 with Riley Reif and Calvin Anderson, was one of these two guys will work out. Throwing names and numbers at a wall and hoping they stick. No one has stuck. Okay. But that was the wrong approach. The Patriots should have learned from that a year ago and said Calvin Anderson and Vidarian Lowe and Chooks Okorafor are playing out of position. Caden Wallace playing out of position. I will figure it out. There's been some bad luck. There's also been some bad planning. That's where I would be critical. As far as the bigger picture, though, I mean, they just had to re-sign and chose to. A lot of core players, okay, did that. They nailed the quarterback. That I honestly should have led with. I think they've nailed the pick with Drake Maye. And that matters more than any other signing or any other draft pick that Elliott and Wolf has made so far. So if you need to give him a grade and it's not incomplete, you have to, in my opinion, start at the very least with a B, because as much as I just lamented and criticized the offensive tackle situation, the quarterback matters more than anything. And I think they've nailed that. Now, of course, the next step is how do you build around him? Okay. But that's where I stand right now. It's overall too early. But if you're really, really going to force my hand, that's where I would land. And for the reasons we just talked about. Two more. Craig got draft on the brain. Craig says, I'd love to see the Pats trade back for a haul, 5-10 spots. Sounds like he at least thinks they'll be top 3. He wants to take a receiver, a left tackle, an edge player with the first 3 picks. Is this doable? I mean, this is a very specific plan without many specifics, I would say, Craig. But to that point, I think you absolutely could get a starting caliber player with your first pick. If that next pick is also in the first round, you might have 2. But my understanding is you've got maybe 2 to 3 tackles right now who are worthy of being top 5, top 10. And naturally, just like quarterback, when guys are, they might be top 15, top 20, they get sucked into this vacuum that is the top of the draft because those are premium positions. A good player at a premium position is better than, you could argue, a great player at right guard, a more replaceable position. So the depth there is not great. But yeah, if you really set your heart on getting a receiver and a left tackle and an edge player, A, understand you're not going to nail all those picks because that's just the draft. But B, yeah, you could do it. Who is it? I don't know. We are not close to draft prep here on the pod. Last one from Dibs. How come there are so few media members that will not, under any circumstance, criticize Mayo and his coaching staff? I don't know who you're referring to genuinely, but I know I'm not among that group because we have Crush Mayo and Alex Van Pelt and Scott Peterson. Look, the negativity around the coaching staff, first of all, because people come at me for this, or, oh my God, you're in the back for Drake Mayer or Gerard Mayer or whatever this is. You're just telling on yourself that you haven't read or listened. And that's fine. You absolutely do not need to keep up with everything I'm doing. But if you are going to come at media, I would say be specific about that, or read us. Don't take the word about what we're doing or saying on radio, because the guys just do not look into this that closely. And that's not their job. And honestly, I would prefer if they not. But if they have an issue, be specific about it. The larger point is, there's room for criticism for everything, right? When it's this bad, it's not on one person or one player or one coach or one GM. It's all bad. And it stinks that answer is not clear cut and you can't point one finger and be done and scream and get it all out. But this is going to be a long second half of the season. And hopefully we get more plays like we saw from Drake Maye. But there will be more blunders and places like here where I'll go at coaching. But I will also tell you why. Okay, we can't just go, they got out schemed because they gave up touchdowns in the first or second quarter. Maybe they were just dumb mistakes, like we detailed about Michael Jordan and Vidarian Lowe giving up this double team of this inside run play where the defense has left the middle wide open, and you should get that call. That was a good play call, and they just blow it. Okay? That's on the player. That's not on the coach. So be specific, understand what you're talking about, and I don't know, if you got a couple of names, I guess we can talk, but I think I work with a ton of great people, and this is not kissing anyone's ass. It's just legitimately how I think, because there's no kissing of any asses on this podcast. Anyway, it is getting late. I have to run to do TV. We will be back later this week with Mike Giardi, the Boston Sports Journal. Time TBD, and the Patriots get the Bears. I will be in Chicago. And for those of you we've got mostly positive feedback about Travel Tales. Travel Tales will always be after only road games, and it will always be at the end of the podcast. So if you want to skip it, just skip it. All right, that's for now. We'll see you later this week.